Serious. What terrifying confession has someone told you while intoxicated? I was at a bar one night in an affluent town. An old guy next to me started talking about his sailing days. He had a 60-foot sailboat and used to sail all over North and South America. His story was from the mid-1980s. He said one night he was anchored near an island off the coast of Venezuela. He was with his girlfriend and they had just fallen asleep when he heard a bump. At first, he didn't think much of it. Barely noticed it, but decided to check it out. He left the sleeping berth and, like in most sailboats, there are a set of steep stairs to climb to get from the cabin to the aft deck. He said he always kept a pistol holstered and hanging from the side of the stair rail. As an afterthought, he grabbed his pistol as he was climbing the stairs. Once he was about halfway out on deck, he saw a man coming over the railing with an automatic weapon. Like an assault rifle. AR-15 or something like that. He said he put 2 rounds into the guy and he fell back over the railing. He ran over and looked down. The guy had fallen into his boat. And there was another guy there also armed with an assault rifle. He said he shot that guy a couple of times, pulled up anchor, and got out of there. He said that pirate activity was not unheard of around there and people like this would board your boat, tie you up and take everything. Then they would torch the boat with you on it. The bump he had heard was the other boat coming up beside his boat. He said that was his last visit to South America. About 5 years ago my brother had his girlfriend sleeping over at our house because we'd had a family game night and been partying. I should interject here and say that not a single one of my family really ever liked this girl, and to all appearances she had no love for us either. She was extremely antisocial, hardly ever even said hello to any of us when she came over, and her and my brother would spend all of their time up in his room. Anyways. That night they had both come down and socialized and we had all been drinking quite a lot. Everyone left and my parents went to bed, but I was still up around 3 a.m. and sitting downstairs watching TV and getting stoned when she walked down in a t-shirt and her underwear. She walked out to the kitchen like it was nothing and I got a good glimpse of a thigh as she walked by and saw a long row of 1-inch marks down the length of the thigh. I thought for sure she'd hurry back up as soon as she was done in the kitchen, but to my surprise she plopped down on the floor and started talking like we were good friends. I got an earful to be sure, but the most shocking things I heard were that one of her uncles had raped her when she was 11 or 12 and others had molested her. And she'd been self-harming since. She was around 22 at the time of the conversation, so about 10 years worth of self-harm. She showed me all of the scars she had down her thigh and her arms. She also said that, since she had started dating my brother, she hadn't harmed herself and was happy. I realized that her being antisocial had nothing to do with us and was as nice as possible to her from then on. They did break up later, but I'll always remember that little convo. Freshman year of college, among all the new friends I made that year, there was one guy who was always a goofball. Very laid back, casual, down for whatever. The biggest red flag we got from him was that whenever people were drinking and hanging out, he would always essentially black out. He drank way too much and would kind of spaghetti noodle his way around the party. While also intoxicated, after the party had winded down one night, a few people and I asked him why he always goes so damn hard. While drooping his head a ton, sloshing around, and slurring everything, he told us about how a few months ago. The summer before college started, his best friend called him. They lived in a small town by the beach and his friend asked him to come meet him to watch the sunset by the water. He biked over there, sat down, and they talked for a while. Everything seemed fine. Then his friend took out a pistol and shot himself in the head, killing himself instantly. Apparently my friend had to call the police, while covered in blood, brains, and skull fragments, just totally in shock. And then a few weeks later he went off to college a few states away, still in shock and unable to sleep or focus on anything. He didn't remember telling us that story, and I don't think any of us wanted to bring it up. His drinking habits didn't change until he was about to graduate, by which point he started going to therapy, got a job right after graduation, and seems to be doing better in the years since. Thank God. The guy I went to school with. We're all now entering our 40s, has never had a proper relationship or even stayed overnight with a woman for a similar reason. When he was 15 his dad would get drunk and bring home women. One woman he brought home regularly was known locally as a bit of a wild card. She could either be blackout drunk on a Wednesday morning in the local playground or handing out food packages at the youth center on a Friday night. You never knew which version of her you would meet on the street. She was only 7 or 8 years older than us, so a lot younger than this guy's dad. Anyway, one night the guy comes downstairs to find his dad passed out on the sofa naked and this woman kneeling next to him with his balls in between the blades of a pair of scissors. He screamed at her and made her drop the scissors, but not before she caught a chunk of the poor old man's tackle. He ended up needing 10 stitches. At the time his dad was so embarrassed about what happened he told people he caught his thigh climbing down the side of a tractor, but years later it all came out one night in the pub. His son didn't say a word, but after it all came out one of his friends put 2 and 2 together and realized that the reason he had never let a woman stay overnight was because he was petrified of being alone with a woman while he slept, not because he just didn't want a girlfriend. It's tragic. They didn't tell me this while they were drunk, but I think it fits here. I am a volunteer at a nursing home. When one of the female residents was close to death, she confided it in me this. One time her husband cheated on her with the neighbor's wife. When the neighbor's husband found out he was very upset and was going to physically hurt her husband. They worked out a deal where the neighbor's husband would not hurt her husband if he was able to return the favor. In essence her husband agreed to let the neighbor have her in order to save himself a righteous beating. It gets worse. She later became pregnant and told her husband for the rest of his life that it was his, but she honestly believed it to be the neighbor's. Her whole life she was carrying this burden about her son and what her husband had done to her, both with the cheating on her and with the trading her off like a cow. It was truly a heartbreaking conversation. My brother joined the army in his early 20s following a very acrimonious divorce. Honestly, looking back we should have had harassment charges brought on his ex and her family. It had sent him spiraling into a deep depression and he wanted to get out of town and try to build a new life and he'd always wanted to join the service, so he signed his papers for the army. He got really drunk the night before the day he was to report to the hotel near the airport where he and his other recruits would fly out to Oklahoma, where they'd be doing boot camp, and told me that he was looking forward to basic because he'd either do well and graduate and get to go somewhere far away from our town, or maybe during grenade practice he'd just keep holding the grenade after pulling the pin and it would all be other. Either way, he said, all of his problems would be solved and we'd get life insurance out of it. Up until then I'd had no idea just how bad he was doing mentally and emotionally. Fortunately he did well at basic training, got a bunch of commendation when he graduated. He'd also been dating a really nice girl before he left and he ended up marrying her when he got out, and for 3 years they were very happy together until she passed away in 2020. This was about 6 months ago now. My brother and I were getting drunk one night because it was the weekend and we just wanted to get fucked up and play video games. We had done plenty of shots and plenty of drinks and we were the definition of fucked up. We were having fun playing some old Call of Duty, World at War Zombies for nostalgia, and we paused it to grab some chips. As I was grabbing the salsa, he said to me that he had tried committing suicide about a month prior to this. He had taken some pills and they pumped his stomach and shit, and he told me the whole time he was thinking of me and how shitty and depressed I'd be if he had died and that he'd never want to lose me. I told him I had also tried committing suicide a while ago and I thought the exact same thing about him. We continued playing zombies while talking about everything under the moon, and we've been talking every day since. I've never missed and will never miss a day. We're both doing a lot better now and we're both in therapy. It's nice having someone to talk to and trust about these things. My great-grandfather was in World War II. He never ever spoke of it. If you asked him about it, he would politely get up, grab his drink and go somewhere else. After my first deployment to Afghanistan he called me and said, I can finally talk to someone. I started hanging out with him all the time. I would tell him stories and he would tell me some. When I went on leave we had a night where me and him were going drink for drink. After a while he tells me about a time when him and his unit found a small concentration camp. They aren't all big like Auschwitz. He said the first thing he remembers was the smell. He said the smell was so bad he almost threw up a handful of times. So this camp didn't have ovens or a gas chamber. When they went through it, the north side of the camp was a pit they had dug out. Inside the pit must have been thousands of decaying bodies. He said he was sure that the ones on the bottom were probably skeletons. When they talked to the people they said the Nazis would line people at random and shoot them. Their bodies would just fall in. He said the Jews told them that as some starved to death they would throw themselves in with hopes of breaking their necks when they hit. The Germans knew the Allies were close, they locked the gate, took the food or poisoned it and put dead bodies in the place they stored the water. He said the disease and infections were so bad that many of the soldiers in his unit were scared to help them. He told me that out of all the shit he had went through that was the worst. It tore him apart, and he said those poor people would haunt his dreams. He felt like he didn't do enough. He felt like those times when they couldn't push the line forward, that was just another day or another week those poor people had to be tortured. My great-grandfather was proud of his time in World War II. And he lived a great life. He died in 2011 at home in his bed watching his favorite show. However, I don't want people to know just this about him. My great-grandfather was a really good man. He was married for 60 years, and my great-grandmother passed 2 years after him. They had 12 children and tried their best to make those around them happy. My great-grandfather wouldn't want any of you to be sad about what he went through. He was grateful for the opportunity to do something truly good for the world. However strong my own suffering is from experiencing what I can truly call hell on earth, I cannot fathom the eternal suffering the Jewish people have felt and will feel for generations to come. I am sorry for those that I could not save, and I am sorry for the times we had to retreat or fall back. I am sorry for the times we got pulled back to the rear. I knew of the atrocities your people faced, but until I saw them, I had no idea. Do not feel sorry for me though. I am happy to suffer. I hope good things for your people's future, and I pray we all learn from this terrible war. He wrote this in a letter to one of the survivors from that camp. He couldn't bring himself to meet him in person, and I didn't push him to. The old co-worker of mine told me about how him and his friends killed a guy in the 80s. Who raped one of their sisters. He wasn't even drunk. He said they pulled up to his trailer out in the desert, honked a horn, and when the guy came out, about 6 guys all opened fire on him. He said. That way no one knew exactly who killed him. I am not sure if this is genuinely terrifying, but it deeply bothered me when it happened. This all happening 6+ years ago. I rented a house with 3 other guys who I knew well enough to live together. We had parties relatively often. Over time we all noticed some of our stuff missing. We never turned on each other. We all ruled it had to be people who would come over for the parties, and we all went our own ways and are still friends. Years later. I was at the bar and I ran into an old high school classmate. Our high school was small, so we pretty much all knew each other. This guy, who was currently in the police academy, starts joking about all the terrible things he's done and how he thought it was funny he was going to be a cop. He was hammered. He starts going on about how him and a friend would go to house parties, and one of them would do card tricks and sleight of hand stuff to get the party's attention. The other would go through the house and steal stuff. As he is telling me this, it all starts connecting. He and his friend were welcome to our house parties. They were there often, and the one guy almost always had a backpack on. It was kind of his thing. I called him out with what he was saying. He awkwardly left. I never did anything about it besides telling my friends and old housemates. The note. He isn't a cop. For whatever reason he didn't make it. This was unsettling for me because of the trust I had in people and friends. It terrified me to a point and has stuck with me as a life lesson. I had a friend in high school who had a younger brother I was also friends with and who also attended the same school. The 3 of us, sometimes with others, would often meet in the bathroom directly across from the administrative office to smoke cigarettes. First thing in the morning. For whatever reason the teachers and admins never looked in that bathroom for smokers. So we're in the bathroom that day, and the older of my 2 friends said that he had just gotten a new video game. I think it was Aliens on Jaguar or something along those lines. He was talking about how fun it was, and I asked if I could come over that night and play it. He said, fuck this. Why wait? Let's go play it now. My parents would have given me a lecture or something, and they rarely answered the phone. There was a high probability that I could just skip school and my parents would never know. His dad would beat his and his brother's asses if they skipped school. He wouldn't be home until late, so going to their house wasn't an issue, but they had to make sure no one called their father when they didn't show up to homeroom. So they went to the admin office and told them that their aunt had just died and they needed to go home. They said their dad was on the way to pick them up. Everything went smooth as could be, and we headed out toward his house. We were about halfway to his house when a car pulls up on us like it is trying to run us over. It's their dad. He's fucking fuming. He says. Your aunt just died and I've been looking everywhere for you. Dead in the fucking car. We all thought that maybe the school did call, left a message offering condolences or something. And he just didn't know it was all a lie. So the younger of my friends says. Dad, we just told them that so they wouldn't call you. He says. I know what you did, and now my sister is dead. I hope you're happy. I still thought for sure he was just trying to teach them a lesson or something. But no, she actually died. Despite being the beat his kids for doing dumb shit kind of dude. He was as much a friend to all of us as his kids were. So later, I heard his side of the story. He called the school to tell them he would be picking them up because their aunt just died, and they said something like, "Oh yes. They already informed us of everything. They'll be waiting out front for you." He had just found out himself from their grandmother, who definitely did not call the school. So he was a little confused but decided to figure that out later and went to pick them up. When he got to the school he didn't see them, so he walked around the building, then went in and asked them to call them over the PA, all while stressing out about his sister having just died. Then he realized. Asses were beat. They blame themselves to this day. I am pretty sure their dad does too. Just a warning, this one is kind of gross, and you probably should listen to it if you're sensitive to animal violence. Freshman year of college, a guy lived on my hall. I'll call him Rick. Rick was a pretty nice guy with a charming personality. He was a little over the top and could be a little too much at times, but people liked him. Fast forward a few months into school, Rick decides to buy a bunny and keep it secretly in his closet as a pet. Rick's roommate's girlfriend was really the one who took care of the bunny, and she loved it very much. This went on for some weeks. But then one day, the bunny was just gone. I asked around what had happened, but no one would tell me. Now for the intoxicated confession part. One night a few days later, while everyone was drinking, Rick's roommate's girlfriend called Rick out for killing the bunny. So, slowly, myself and a few other drunken teenagers learned that Rick had slowly tortured and killed the bunny over several hours. He was a complete monster, and he confessed to having the desire to kill animals and having done so for a long time. He even went as far as to ask if I would buy him an animal from the pet store as he wasn't allowed to anymore. Honestly, it was a bad situation, and we should have done more to stop it. I really wonder how many more animals he's hurt. We reported it several times to several places. We probably should have reported it outside of the college, but we didn't know that then. I don't know where he is now or what he is doing. My best friend told me she loved me and wanted me to leave my wife last night. I've known her since we were in grade school, and I feel sick. I don't even know if she remembers, because this morning she texted me about some new manga release that I should buy for my wife. I did talk to my wife. She got home a few hours ago and had actually gone to my friend's house to pick up my guitar and switch that I left there. Friend was mostly quiet and seemed like she just woke up, so I wonder if she is worried about how to handle it. I talked to my wife about it. I told her what happened, and she did cry a little about a relationship with our friend, but she mostly just seemed worried about how I am handling it. She told me to wait to decide if I was cutting the friend out or not, so I can think about it and have time to talk to my friend before I just drop her. My wife wants to talk to our friend about that, but is going to let me have whatever conversation I need first. My parents finally fessed up that they had another child who died before me and my twin sister were born. This in itself wasn't exactly terrifying, because unfortunately that does happen sometimes. What made it so terrifying was the fact that my sister and I knew, yet for our whole lives our parents had convinced us we were misremembering. I'm not sure how we knew. Our brother died a year before we were born, and we've never met him. There are 0 pictures of him. He was never mentioned. Our parents and the rest of our family collectively forgot about him, and I have to mention that this is totally in line with our family. They will just close ranks and forget absolutely everything they don't want to acknowledge. Yet somehow, from a very early age, my sister and I told everyone we had a brother. Lots of our school friends were aware of our brother. When it was finally revealed that it was just the 2 of us, our friends gave us shit for lying, but my sister and I were just genuinely confused because we knew it was true. Many times over the years, we confronted our parents about it. Every single time, they lied to us. They promised we never had any other siblings, they swore up and down we were just confused. Then one day when they were both drunk we overheard them talking about him and ran down to call them on it, and they finally confessed. This still doesn't explain how we knew. I can only imagine we must have heard or seen something when we were very young and just don't consciously remember, but it's fucked up beyond belief that the entire family lied to us for 16 years. We even remembered his name. The most terrifying thing of all is the fact that my sister and I still think they're lying. Both of us have a distinct memory of playing with a slightly older boy when we were very young, and both of us remember thinking of him as our older brother within the context of the memory. Thanks for watching. If you like the video, please drop a like, and to stay up to date with my latest videos, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel by clicking the button under this video.